The next piece of functionality that you'll implement is the voting feature. Authenticated users are allowed to submit a vote for a link. The most upvoted links will later be displayed on a separate route. Once again, the first step to implement this new feature is to make your React components ready for the expected functionality. Let's open up link.js and update the render function to look as follows. Here, we're preparing the link component to render the number of votes for each link and the name of the user that posted it. Plus, we're going to render an upvote button if a user is currently logged in. That's what you're using the user ID for. If the link is not associated with the user's name will be rendered as unknown. Notice that you're using a function called timeDifferenceForDate that gets past the created@, information for each link. This function will take the timestamp and convert it into a string that's more user-friendly. For example, 3 hours ago. Go ahead and implement the timeDifferenceForDate function next so you can import and use it in the link component. Let's create a new file called utils.js in the source directory and paste the following code into it. Back in link.js, import the GCUserID and timeDifferenceForDate function on top of the file. Finally, each link element will also render its position inside the list, so you have to pass down an index from the linked list component. Open linklist.js and update the rendering of the link components inside render to also include the link's position. Notice that the app won't run at the moment since the votes are not yet included in the query. Let's fix that next. For this new feature, you also need to update the schema again since votes on links will be represented with a custom vote type. Open project.graphql and add the following type. Each vote will be associated with the user who created it as well as the link that it belongs to. You also have to add the other end of the relation. In project.graphql, add the following field to the user type. Now, add another field to the link type. Next, open up a terminal window and navigate to the directory where project.graphql is located. Then, apply your schema changes by typing the following command, GraphQL push. Here's what the terminal output looks like. Awesome! Now that you updated the schema, you can fix the issue that currently prevents you from properly running the app. It can be fixed by including the information about the link's votes in the all links query that's defined in linked list. Open linklist.js and update the definition of all links query to look as follows. All you do here is include information about the user who posted a link as well as information about the link's votes in the query's payload. You can now run the app again and the links will be properly displayed. Let's now move on and implement the upvote mutation. Open link.js and add the following mutation definition to the bottom of the file. Once more, replace the current export link statement. This step should be pretty familiar by now. You're adding the ability to call the createVote mutation to the link by wrapping it with the createVote mutation. As with times before, you'll need to import the GQL and GraphQL functions on top of the link.js file. Finally, we need to implement the voteForLink mutation. Notice that in the first part of the method, you're checking whether the user already voted for that link. If that's the case, you return early from the method and you actually don't execute the mutation. You can now go test the implementation. Let's run yarn start and click the upvote button on a link. You're not getting any UI feedback yet, but after refreshing the page, you'll see the added votes. There's still a flaw in the app though. Since the votes on a link don't get updated right away, a user currently can submit an indefinite number of votes until the page is refreshed. Only then the protection mechanism will apply, and instead of an upvote, the click on the vote will simply result in the following log statement. but at least we know that the mutation is working. In the next section, we'll fix this issue and make sure that the cache gets updated directly after each mutation. One cool thing about Apollo is that you can manually control the contents of the cache. This comes in super handy, especially after a mutation was performed, because it allows us to make our UI feel really fresh. Here, we want to make sure the UI displays the correct number of votes after the create vote mutation was performed. You can implement this functionality by using Apollo's imperative store API. Let's open up link and update the call to create vote mutation inside the vote for link method as follows. We're adding an update function as an argument to the mutation call, and it will be called when the server returns a response. It receives the payload of the mutation, data, and the current cache store as arguments. You can then use this input to determine a new state of the cache. In this example, we're destructuring the server response and retrieving the create vote field from it. So now you know what this update function is. Let's actually write the implementation, which will be done in the parent component of link, which is link list. Open linklist.js and add the following method inside the scope of the link list component. Let's walk through what's going on here. First, we start by reading the current state of the cache data for the all links query. Next, we are retrieving the link that the user just voted for from that list. And we're also going to manipulate that link by resetting its votes to the votes that were returned by the server. Finally, we're going to take that modified data and write it back to the store. Next, we need to pass this function down to the link so it can be called from there. In linklist.js, update the way the link component is rendered. Here we're going to pass update store after vote as a prop. Awesome. This update function will now be executed and make sure that the store gets updated properly after a mutation was performed. The store update will trigger a re-render of the component and thus update the UI with the correct information. While we're at it, let's also implement update for adding new links. Open createlink.js and update the call to create link mutation inside create link like so. This update function works in a very similar way as before. We first read the current state of the results of all links query. Then we insert the newest link to the top and write the query back to the store. The last thing we need to do to make this work is import the all links query into this file. And we also need to export it from where it's defined. So in linklist.js, let's adjust the definition of all links query by adding the export keyword to it. Sweet. Now the store also updates with the right information after new links are added. This app is getting into shape.